Why did the old woman meet with violent threats? This all started with a speech a few days ago. Laura, a female writer who advocated freedom above all else, was giving a passionate speech at a prestigious university. A large crowd gathered at the scene. Social issues arising from immigration policies had become increasingly acute. As Laura kept speaking, the atmosphere off stage became increasingly tense. The scene was once chaotic. Laura had to flee in a hurry. When the farce ended, the scene was in a complete mess, but when the campus security personnel arrived, they were stunned by Laura's tragic condition. The security guard urgently called an ambulance. Benson, on the ambulance, found that Laura was unconscious. After a heavy blow to the back of her head, her underwear was removed, and there was a lot of blood in her private area. The police initially judged that Laura was probably assaulted during the chaos. Then Officer Benson and medical staff rushed Laura to the hospital. In the face of the police's questioning, Laura only remembered that the attacker deliberately assaulted her from behind during the riot, so she didn't see the attacker's appearance clearly, and the severe pain in her private area made her tremble uncontrollably. It could be seen how cruel the attacker's methods were. At the same time, Officer Amanda learned from the campus security that the speech was an illegal assembly. The rioting crowd had already left, since there were no surveillance equipment installed in the incident area. The police couldn't obtain any clues at all. Luckily, Amanda found a key piece of evidence in the trash can, a long paper stick covered in blood. The sign on the stick was guessed to belong to a protester. The police guessed that the attacker might have used the stick to assault Laura. After a careful search, the police soon found that the pattern matching the sign was a hammer and a rose. Unluckily, the police couldn't determine which camp the symbol belonged to. In response, the police quickly went to the school's youth club to investigate. The club president revealed that Laura's ideological views had obvious extreme tendencies. She once publicly mocked all the people she looked down on in her books, although this led to numerous attacks from haters, and the attacker's sign belonged to an illegal group called the Progressive Alliance. It was this alliance that organized the demonstration. Since none of them were students of the school, the president didn't know their specific identities. In the police station, Officer Tutu informed everyone. Forensic tests confirmed that the blood on the stick was indeed Laura's. The attacker actually used such cruel means to commit the assault. Everyone immediately started a discussion based on the current situation. Although there was no surveillance video at the crime scene, several students still took pictures of several suspicious people with their mobile phones. The police then notified the technical department to conduct facial recognition on the video. At this point, Benson suddenly received news from the testing department. DNA of the attacker was extracted from Laura's nails. After comparison, it was confirmed that the man was named Ivan. He was arrested by the police during a parade last month. Based on this clue, the police quickly rushed to Ivan's bar. After learning of Laura's misfortune, he didn't show due sympathy, but instead showed inappropriate joy. The police immediately arrested Ivan as the attacker and took him back to the police station. At the same time, Benson quickly notified Laura to go to the police station to identify the attacker. At first, Benson felt very worried. After all, Laura was both a public figure and a victim. She might feel anger and shame about what had happened to her, but Laura appeared unusually calm. She even showed extreme disdain for Benson's consolation. In the face of Benson's questions, the confident Laura frankly said she was full of energy. In her opinion, these experiences were simply not worth mentioning. She even told Benson there was no need to be overly cautious with her, and hoped the matter would be resolved quickly. During the identification process, Laura accurately identified Ivan from among many suspects in just 3 seconds. She clearly remembered that the other person had spoken abusive words to her at the scene, but when Benson asked if Ivan had committed the assault, Laura hesitated for a few seconds. This made Benson very confused. After a brief hesitation, Laura suddenly and firmly identified Ivan again. Since the victim had clearly identified the culprit, even if there might be hidden facts, Benson had to inform the prosecutor to proceed with the prosecution process. At the entrance of the court, Ivan's lawyer was passionately delivering a speech to many reporters. It was at this time that Benson expressed his doubts to the prosecutor, because Laura had previously said she couldn't see the culprit's face clearly. He guessed she might be deliberately making a false accusation. In response, the prosecutor only told Benson to do his job well. If he had doubts, he should find out the truth himself. So Benson and Amanda had to find Laura again. The energetic woman in front of them was holding a new book signing event. No matter how Benson questioned her, she insisted that Ivan was the culprit. In desperation, Amanda had to show photos of other men from that night, hoping to jog Laura's memory of the details. The other person flipped through them impatiently a few times, but when she saw the last person, she hesitated again. She said the person was George, who had attended her speech. Moreover, security had checked and found he posed no threat, and then she swaggered away. At the police station, when everyone checked George's background information, they found he was a conservative, unmarried. He lived with his mother, and like Laura, He also had discriminatory views towards certain groups of people, he often posted controversial videos on social media, and had a serious tendency towards violence. He had shown weapons in videos multiple times and incited riots. Everyone guessed that he might be related to the assault case. The police immediately went to George's residence. George's mother said her son liked Laura very much, but at this point, an accident suddenly occurred, so there was the scene at the beginning. From George's mother, they learned that people who opposed her son often vented their anger through violence. Not long after, George also arrived in a hurry. He first settled his mother, then accompanied the police back to the police station to assist in the investigation. In the face of the police's questioning, he immediately showed typical behaviors of an extremist. He illogically claimed to be a great wizard. He also said he would strive to revitalize the country's glory through his own efforts. When George learned that Laura had been assaulted, he said he was indeed near Laura during her speech, but it was only to protect her from harm by opposing camps. After that, he drove home with his companions. Just as the police asked for his companions' names, George suddenly flew into a rage. He claimed that the police had no right to investigate this matter, then left in anger. At this point, after investigation, Tutu found that George had been stalking Laura for a long time. He even snatched a female protester sign and hit Laura on the head during a speech, and he had been arrested by the police multiple times for violent acts. But the contradiction was, why would George attack someone he liked? While everyone was puzzled, Amanda found a clue in the video. The host on TV was fiercely condemning Laura's despicable behavior. It was obvious that her actions had aroused strong dissatisfaction among the people. The hammer and rose sign in the picture was particularly eye-catching, and the person holding the sign was actually Ivan. Moreover, the forensic doctor had confirmed that the DNA in Laura's nails completely matched Ivan's. In response, the police had to file a lawsuit against him. Before the trial, Benson and the prosecutor took political factors into account. They were worried that the strong-willed Laura would make unfavorable remarks in court. If she gave a passionate speech in court, she might lose the support of the jurors, so they hoped she would appear approachable. But in the face of the prosecutor's kindness, Laura insisted on being herself, asking the prosecutor to just inform her of the time and place of the trial. Benson said that Laura had long relied on lies as a way of survival. Even though she was in the situation of a victim, her usual behavior didn't mean that Laura was a good person. She was very likely to deceive everyone in the trial. In court, Laura said the details of her assault in court, but the opposing lawyer immediately questioned Laura's statement. The two got into a heated argument right away. The defense lawyer thus guessed that Laura identified Ivan because of the opposition between their camps, and George was her fan. In order to maintain her group of loyal supporters, Laura chose to provide false statements to the police. This speculation was rejected by the judge due to lack of evidence. But the defense lawyer cleverly planted a key foreshadowing. He asked Laura where she stayed the night before the speech. Laura said it was the 5-star Milan hotel arranged by the youth club. At this point, the defendant Ivan also gave his testimony. Although he looked down on Laura's discriminatory behavior, he firmly denied having assaulted her. As for the DNA in Laura's nails, he explained that the two had a conflict on the day of the incident. He accidentally scratched Laura's face in the chaos, and the protest sign in his hand was snatched by George, who suddenly rushed out. Long before the conflict, the case suddenly took a turn. In response, the prosecutor questioned Ivan, but Ivan showed strong dissatisfaction with Laura and loudly condemned her foolish behavior. When he got excited, Ivan suddenly lost control.
Machine, and we need to stop her by any means necessary.
We must stop Laura's foolish behavior at all costs. They thought the case would be clear by now, but the judge immediately summoned George to testify. At first, George acted very gentlemanly, but the next second, the arrogant George fell into the defense lawyer's trap. The lawyer said that he had published discriminatory papers similar to Laura's. George, who didn't realize it was a trap, admitted on the spot that he hoped to build an ideal country. He even uttered insulting words to some representatives in the jury and court. In the nick of time, the judge stopped it in time, but the defense lawyer questioned George about being humiliated by Laura before the incident, so he took revenge on her in a fit of anger. How could the narcissistic George tolerate others questioning him? He even publicly reprimanded the lawyer in court. Seeing that their goal was achieved, the defense stopped questioning, but this accident also made the prosecutor realize that Laura had deliberately concealed key details. This also showed that the previous testimony and accusations might all be lies. The prosecutor quickly informed Benson of this matter. Helpless, Benson immediately found Laura to confront her face to face, but the other person not only didn't realize her mistake, but also shifted all the blame to the prosecutor. Her attitude was arrogant and unreasonable. Although Benson was angry, he wanted to uncover the truth. Benson hoped that Laura could let down her guard and identify the real culprit. Unexpectedly, the other person still believed that she was very powerful, and would never yield to difficulties. Luckily, Benson persuaded her persistently. Finally, he made her reveal the truth. It turned out that Laura didn't know who the real culprit was at all. She just used Ivan as a scapegoat, because she had a conflict with him. At this time, there were only 15 minutes left before the final trial. Regarding Laura's ambiguous statement, the prosecutor already had a conclusion in his mind, but it was too late to change the charges or find new evidence, let alone continue to accuse someone who was known to be innocent. In the trial, the prosecutor finally questioned whether George had assaulted Laura with a paper stick, but the other person still denied it with an arrogant attitude. At this point, the prosecutor was suffering very in his heart. In the end, the prosecutor made a surprising decision.
Assaulted Martha Cobb. Accordingly, I move to dismiss the indictment.
This decision shocked the court in an instant. At the same time, the defense lawyer also put forward a request to withdraw the lawsuit. Faced with the judge's inquiry, the prosecutor was aware that this withdrawal might have a negative impact on his career, but even so, he would never wrong any innocent person. The judge immediately approved the application. Outside the court, Ivan and his lawyer were still condemning Laura's various crimes in front of the media, and George wasn't idle either. He was giving an impassioned speech to the media. Benson also told the prosecutor his doubts. Obviously, this wasn't an ordinary case. At the end of the film, Benson met Laura again. He was surprised to find that she had chosen the bar where Ivan worked as the meeting place. Laura was still arrogant. She even ignored the efforts and kindness of the prosecutor in pursuing the truth. Not every case could proceed smoothly. When the victim herself was indifferent to her own innocence, even if the police did their best, it was difficult to get any substantial reward. The farce of the speech at New York University turned into a violent assault case. After the writer Laura was attacked, she accused Ivan from the opposing camp of being the culprit. DNA evidence and the chaos at the scene intertwined into a Rashomon-like situation. The film uses Laura's inconsistent testimony and Ivan's angry refutation as the tense core to reveal the distortion of the truth behind racial conflicts. When she admitted that she didn't know who the real culprit was, this accusation had already become a pawn in the ideological struggle. The contest between the physical evidence of the paper stick and the hammer and rose sign in the case. It's actually a microcosm of the left and right factions, competing for the right to speak. George, as an extremist in the same camp as Laura, his tracking records and history of violence imply more complex motives, and the details of that hotel humiliation brought up by the defense lawyer led the case from a criminal offense to a melee of classes and ideas. The most ironic thing is that the prosecutor finally chose to withdraw the charges. Legal justice had to compromise with ambiguous facts. The camera repeatedly freezes on the divided crowd during Laura's speech, and the confronting jury in the court, implying that society has been torn apart by class groups. When the victim lies for personal gain, when the culprit escapes punishment based on their own position, what this assault case finally reveals is a reality, more terrifying than violence, in the soil of bigotry and hatred. The truth has long since become the most insignificant victim. Thank you for watching. If you like my channel, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe.